Let's get some immediate reaction right now as the House of Commons held marathon debates over the Emergencies Act. Ultimately, as I said, it passed Monday 185 to 151. The Conservatives and the Bloc and one Green MP voted against it. But the federal government managed to get the NDP and Green Party MP Elizabeth May on their side. Even some own Liberal MPs like Joël Lightbound did not really think it met the threshold, but the vote was whipped. In other words, all MPs had to vote for it. So did the government now give in to opposition who said they never met the threshold? By the way, the Senate is supposed to be debating this right now. I guess that debate is now a moot point. Now, the Public Safety Minister, Marco Mendicino, is going to join us in just a minute, but I've got some opposition MPs here now. The Conservative public safety critic, Raquel Dancho, joins me, and so does the NDP House Leader, Peter Julian. Ms. Dancho, let me start with you. What do you make of Justin Trudeau 10 days after the Emergencies Act was invoked, saying the emergency is over? We needed it. We no longer do. We always said it was prudent. We would use it judiciously and in a time-sensitive way, and now they've revoked it. Your reaction?
Well, I think it's very clear, Evan, that the Prime Minister was wrong to force a confidence vote just 48 hours ago, less than 48 hours ago. The Prime Minister was so forceful that this needed to happen, that this act needed to pass, that he forced a confidence vote, forced his backbench MPs, as you mentioned, to vote for it. And now nothing has changed in 48 hours, but I think the Prime Minister recognized that he was wrong in doing this, that this was a power grab, a government overreach. And again, I'm just shocked to see that he is actually admitting Conservatives, what we've been saying all along is correct, that the existing laws on the books are more than enough to keep the peace and break up any unlawful illegal blockade. So again, the Prime Minister was wrong to do what he did, and we're very happy to see this being revoked.
Just out of interest, would that mean also the province of Ontario revoked its state of emergency, Raquel Dancho? Was it wrong for the province also to enforce their state of emergency as well?
Well, I think what's really interesting is the federal laws that existed in the criminal code should have been used to break up the unlawful protest. This is what Conservatives were saying for weeks, that the Emergencies Act at the federal level was not needed. And now here we are today, Justin Trudeau saying the same thing. So again, he was wrong to do this, and I'm glad to see that he has come forward and he's revoking this act.
Mr. Julian, is that how you read it, that and the NDP and you voted for it? Is this an admission that it was overreach? 48 hours ago, there was an emergency that required a vote. 48 hours later, there's not. Does that undermine the vote that you gave to support the Emergencies Act 48 hours ago?
Well, we've said all along that this was reluctant support that we were providing. We had numerous contacts between the NDP and the Liberal government, from Prime Minister Trudeau to our leader Jagmeet Singh, our critics, the House leader level. We were saying consistently the bill, that the law should be revoked as soon as it was no longer needed. So we support the revoking of the law today. That it is the moment that it is no longer needed is the time to revoke it, and we believe that that was the appropriate move that was made today.
Okay, I just want to go back then. If it's appropriate not to have the Emergencies Act on Wednesday, why was it appropriate to have it on Monday?
We confirmed it on Monday. As you know, the Parliament confirmed the putting in place of the Emergencies Act. There was no doubt that there were provisions of the Emergencies Act that made a big difference on the weekend and ending the occupation of Ottawa. The designated zones played a huge role in making sure that there wasn't 4,000 or 5,000 people on Parliament Hill. The essential services allowing for tow truck operation, the financial elements, those were all elements that were needed, we believe. But we've been pressing the government from the very beginning that the moment those measures are no longer needed, it should be revoked. And we're glad to see and we support the idea that it's revoked today.
Raquel Dancho, the government's arguing this is exactly why it was needed. The province needed it. The city wanted it. It was time sensitive. The moment they didn't need it, they revoked it. There was a vote on Parliament. Premiers were consulted. There's going to be an inquiry within 60 days. They say this is exactly how this act should work. Do you buy it?
No, I don't. Nothing has changed in the last 48 hours. The Prime Minister, again, threatened an election if MPs, including the NDP, didn't vote for this Emergencies Act to pass. So nothing has changed in 48 hours other than I think he's realizing how wrong he was to invoke this. This was always a power grab, a government overreach. And again, I think I'm looking forward to that inquiry. I think there's going to be a lot of inquiries, both at the committee level and elsewhere, to find out exactly what went wrong here. Why is it that in 48 hours, the government's changed its position a complete 180? It doesn't really add up. So opposition MPs are looking to learn what's really happened here. There's a lot of concerns that we've had about the government overreach, and we will learn more about this in this complete 180 in the last 2 days, in the coming days.
Can I just ask you, before I guess last question, Mr. Julian, but Ms. Dancho, you and I have had this conversation. Members of your party said that you've found Canadians who have made like a $20 donation who had their accounts frozen. That's going to be a big issue we'll take up with Marco Mendicino in a minute. Is there any confirmation that your party has seen anybody who's made that small donation of 20 or 50 bucks either before February 15th or even after who has had their account frozen? Is there anything confirmed from your party? We can't confirm it.
Right.
Have you?
Well, I think this is actually a really great point, Evan. I think what we've been seeing the last couple of days since the Emergency Act was first brought forward was a mass amount of government misinformation that created a lot of panic with all of those who participated, whether 3 weeks ago with a small donation or otherwise. A lot of confusion at the banking level as well. A lot of institutions, the banking institutions were confused. So I think there was a lot of misinformation from Chrystia Freeland, from the Prime Minister, regarding what exactly the parameters and the remedies were for freezing bank accounts. And I think in the coming days, we will learn the ramifications of that lack of clarification of that government misinformation on freezing bank accounts. So I look forward to hearing those answers in the inquiry and at committee from the government.
I agree. I think there's a lot of confusion about that. But was there misinformation coming from Conservative MPs, yes or no? They'd alleged that they had,
if I may,
they had citizens who had their bank accounts frozen. I just want to know, was that confirmed?
Well, I've been hearing from constituents as well about this. And again, I think it goes back to government misinformation, the incredible lack of clarity when the government announced over a week ago, and Chrystia Freeland announced over a week ago, they were freezing bank accounts. I think there was mass panic for anyone who participated. So we're going to be looking for clarification from the government of what those parameters were and dealing with the ramifications, I think, for quite some time.
Right. Mr. Julian, last point to you. Does the NDP now regret supporting the Emergencies Act now that it's been so quickly revoked? In the end, was it a mistake?
We support the revoking today. We are continue to press for parliamentary review of the Emergencies Act, and we want to put that committee in place immediately, and the public inquiry. We don't believe it should ever have come to this, and Jagmeet Singh was very clear in the emergency debate that the NDP pushed on in the House 2 weeks ago, that it never should have come to that. There was inaction from the federal government for a number of weeks. And we believe the public inquiry needs to tackle a number of issues, including how it came to that, but also the unequal degree of policing that we're seeing in this country. It's different, obviously, for Indigenous people or racialized people than it was the effective policing that we saw over the course of the weekend. Right. The threat of white supremacy and racism continues. And finally, the final point, of course, is rebuilding this country and rebuilding unity, which we find fundamentally important.
Okay, but just if I can get an answer to the question, does the NDP regret supporting the Liberals on Monday when it's revoked on Wednesday? Do you regret that vote, yes or no?
We confirmed on Monday, and we support the revoking of the Emergencies Act today. I mean, I think that's clear that we've been consistent right through the last week and a half.
Okay, Raquel Dancho and Peter Julian, I really appreciate it. And both of you talked about an inquiry that is built into the Emergencies Act legislation. There will be an inquiry in 60 days, so we'll hope to get a lot of answers that we do need.